as everyone already knows who's watching this, you are Mr. Life Lessons, right? So the way I look at life lessons is if we look back in time with hindsight, with all the things that we know now, what are some of the life lessons that you learned during them early years?
So when I think about that, I personally think about the things that I can be thankful for, right? So one of the things that really comes to mind, for example, was when I was saying my speech at my wedding. Okay, and you know, when you typically go on about when you hear people say things at their wedding, what they typically say is, "I really like to thank my mum and dad because if it wasn't for you, then this wouldn't have happened," that kind of thing. And I never said it in my speech, right? I really recalled the moments in time that that Anita and I met, and how I thought it was a twist of fate how we, for example, lived so close to one another. We lived a street apart basically, but only got together, you know, some years later, and we had many touch points and connections through friends and brothers and all that kind of stuff. But then, like, we were always just this far apart. And it was kind of like, you know, my wife was always just right there. That sort of thing. So I talked a lot about that, but I never really mentioned things about my dad and about my mum. Maybe it's because, I don't know, maybe they were separated or they are separated, but maybe it was because of that. Maybe it was because of my relationship with my dad just hasn't been the greatest, like through adolescence, and you know, we don't talk. We haven't talked for 10 years, you know, so there's all those sorts of things which I probably didn't want to, like unconsciously, I didn't want to, you know, talk about that kind of stuff. I want to talk about the good stuff. But when I think about my mum and dad, I think about the positives that I can take away from them. So my dad would be pleased to hear about this, right? Because we just fucking clash all the time, right? I mean, like, we really have just, a relationship that's not cohesive at all. But if I can take the positives out of what I've retained from my father, it is the creativity. So my music background, anything to do with verbal communication, right? My dad was basically, you know, just that sort of natural born salesman, you know what I mean? He used to work in a retail store and all that kind of stuff. So he was just good with his words, okay? Unfortunately, I think for him, there's more moments in his life where he's used his words in a more manipulative sense to get what he wants, rather than to do something that's actually for good. So he'd obviously disagree with that, but that's my opinion, right? Whereas I've utilized those things, I feel, now in my later life, because there are times where I feel like I have been, you know, I haven't been the best person to my friends or to people that I've been surrounding with, you know. Like, I recollect younger years where, you know, I thought I was a bit of a dick in high school. I had reasonable grounds to think so, or to act that way, because I had a troubled life during high school. But I pick apart those things and I use them now for good. My mum, like I said before, was the type of person who used to tell me, like, my man-to-man talks about life and love and relationships and the girl that broke my heart was with my mum. Right. I never had those talks with dad. So when I used to, now that I know what my mum's been through, and she's divulged parts of her history and things that she's gone through, I know that she was telling me the exact opposite of what she was going through. This is respect, this is love, this is generosity, this is connection, you know, this is family. These are morals, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? So, although I haven't exactly played to those things all the time, those strengths all the time, I now base a lot of my life on those particular moral strengths, attributes, viewpoints, ways of the world. You know, that's my life lessons. I bring them forward to how I carry myself in every day. And that's aside from just all the other shit that happens in life, you know what I mean? So that's yeah, I think I've answered your question
Oh,
somewhere.
absolutely. Yeah, it's the opposite of emotional turmoil or ups and downs is harmony and love and respect. And like I already know from the stuff that you teach and the personal development stuff that you do and the stuff that Anita does, and you've already got your boys. So if people don't know, he's got 3 young boys. I call them the 3 wise men because they're the master teachers of any life lesson you'll ever come across.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I can see that your whole family's on board with this kind of stuff. So I feel that the life lessons that your parents passed on down to you, I feel that you're well on your way to conquering all of them and being congruent with what you teach and what you're talking about, you're doing in your home life as well. So
yeah, 100%.
Hats off to you for that.
Thank you.